My buy stop just randomly shows. How's it going, Bruce? How's it going, David? What time is it there now? 8:11. Woke up like right at open, so 1 second. All right, so looks like this should stop me out. What pairs are those? This is S&P futures. We're kind of just consolidating, dropping down a little. I just put my stop breaking even on that one, but we'll go ahead and hop to the daily and go over. So weekly, obviously, swept these lows down here, aggressive move out of it. We're reaching right into this weekly order block here. So ideally, I want to see Monday and Tuesday drop lower to then go higher, and then I want to see about 4,000 on the daily chart, right? So that is what I have, and you can see this daily order block right here. I have that set up. That was my target for this short, which never reached. I just stopped out break even. But with that idea in mind, going out through the 4 hour, there wasn't a whole lot. Besides, we have this aggressive displacement range going from low to high. Obviously, want to target into a premium or a discount of this section. So that is what I was looking for. Monday or Tuesday, drop down into here. We'll see what happens. But right now, not super fun price action for the most part. But okay, bro. What search shorts? What said shorts? I was looking for a target on that, and then aggressive price here. Look to get in there. Once it rejected, I just entered right there. Hold some here. Stopped out rest. Break even. Or just above. Right there. When is the giveaway? Probably end of this week or something. Not fair value yet. 3858. I haven't looked at a 5-minute chart. I mean, that'd be, yeah, if you want to narrow down a point of interest, that could work. Ideally, right now, we're just getting the broad information right here to go lower. That's what I would want. But I'm not going to sit through the position right now. Where's Frosted Tips? Say hi, buddy. Nick, he doesn't want to say hi. Daily bias on NQ, it's very similar, I'm assuming. I don't really watch NQ as much. So we do have the daily SMT. You can see that. Zoom in. Last week, yes, took these highs. NAS couldn't. So I would want just a retracement a little lower on NAS. But, you know, I'm using fib. Do you take your point from the displacement by a recent low? Yeah. I mean, you can do it however you want. Really, it's just to kind of define points of interest for you. Um, Real quick, if we're going to continue. But what I normally do is, let's say this is our displacement range right here, right? Well, it's not very clean. We'll just use the current one. I just go from this low right here to wherever we are at. And that's because if you go down to a lower time frame, like a 15-second, right? That's the low that was put in for this range. It's not that low. You can use it still. It's not really going to change a whole lot, but how's it going, Sonar? But I'll go ahead back up. And I think there was a little divergence at the lows. Can't remember. How do you go about automating an algo and avoid the idea of getting stalled? Non-disclosure agreement. Yeah, I mean, you'd likely have to code it yourself for the most part. So now if you guys can see, right, we have a pretty decent divergence here in between ES and NAS. So that's when I would be expecting a retracement between the two sides there. We retch up into the mean threshold or the middle of that order block. Right? Yeah. So we want some short-term downside here. Yeah, so when you're diverging at the highs, this is bearish, right? When you're diverging at the lows, it's bullish. How's it going? So would want to see some slight pullback here, right? Ideally, at least come and retest these highs if we're going to go low, a little bit higher. Looking at the 5-minute chart, not a whole lot. You can see NASDAQ obviously weaker, but pretty range bound, most likely going to just kind of chop around. So back to the 1-minute. Mean threshold of this little 1-minute order block or mitigation block, whatever you want to call it, since this didn't start the run of liquidity before the drop. Retch into it, starting to fall a little. You can see lack of displacement lower so far, still pretty bullish. Ideally, I'd prefer to watch NQ here and just see when it hits this little order block. ZS is a lot stronger, right? So now I want to see if there's a reaction out of this area. You don't want to go to in second. Ideally, if we're going to react out of this, you would get an aggressive move lower, aggressive move higher. Right? Let's see why I'm watching NASDAQ over ES. ES has done this the past 2 minutes. NASDAQ has done that. So there goes reaching. Looks like it's going to probably follow behind now. We go back up to the 1 minute. They'll want this to reach down into that area. But with 38.82 considered a breaker on the 1 minute chart. Let me look. 38.82. Yeah, I mean, you could use this one as a breaker. It's the same as this little order block. But, right, so displacement leg. Now we're reaching down into here. Up to 5. Very choppy. It's going to be easier seeing on this, right? So now we have a divergence at the lows. And Q already took this low down here. ES didn't, right? So we'd want to see if there's anything to lead higher. And then here I would personally be watching NQ, right? Just risk to reward wise, you're going to take a trade in here, right? Something like that. Versus you do here, risk the current low, find a lower time frame entry, right? Something like that. So, see if there's anything. But yeah, you could consider it a breaker, but it lines up exactly with the order block as well. The bullish order block. So now, if we're going to just get a retracement here, kind of messy price action between the indices today, but jump into that OTE area. Here, not quite as much. You wouldn't expect it as NQ's a lot weaker. Already took this low, right? So ideally you want to see displacement up into this area if we're going to go see the other side of the range. If you notice, what are we making? Our broadening formation, right? So, why are you bullish? I'm bullish on the week, the higher time frames. I mean, I'd say this aggressive move is pretty bullish for the most part. Yeah. I mean, if you were here earlier, I said my bias for the week. Other than that, we're not doing a whole lot, so why focus on just bias and just watch the lower time frame structure, see what's happening, right? What does FF mean? Just fair value gap fill. So if we go to a daily chart here, it's where this fair value gap fills before it forms. Right? So if we go back to, let's go on replay real quick. So when it closed, we had this potential fair value gap right here, right? Today, right? We have this candle here that's filling the fair value gap before it forms. That's all it is. So if you look, I'm expecting NQ to drop a slight bit lower here. Yeah, of course. Will you trade if NAS gives setup? And yeah, I'll trade NAS. I just prefer not I prefer S&P over NAS after trading them both a little bit. Talk through my definition of order blocks. I kind of just use order blocks as the overall term for breaker blocks, mitigation blocks, propulsion blocks, all of them. If you want, I will link a video to my friend Alex Options videos on order block. He explains it pretty well. So I'll drop a link to that. And that should help you out. And so there you go. Got our drop on NAS there. And the reason I was expecting that is lack of displacement higher at the lows, right? Lack of displacement higher reaches into this OTE, into a premium of this little range here. Want to see lower. Now we're in an OTE, just sweeping this little low. Now I'd expect to possibly get some displacement up, right? Got a DM on Twitter. Yeah, I'll check it out. I have like 15 right now I have to go through. How's it going, Bruce Wayne? Nice, Leonard. That is what I had for my initial position. But if we look, I didn't really feel like holding this just to get there. I'd have waited, so that's why I got out. Thanks, Bruce. I appreciate it. So now we're in OTE, no sign of displacing back up, right? You can see that. Where did we reach? Right here on this up close candle move, right into this little order block or mitigation block. Really just up close candles should resist price, right? So now we're reaching out into here. We'll go up to the 1 minute just so you guys can see what it looks like there. Routing information. If we do get a little pop, where is my first target? Well, I want to look into a premium. What do we have right at that premium? Internal liquidity, right? So if we do get a pop, I'd want to see it right over this high, and then we can do whatever we want. Similar thing with ES here. See how we targeted the OTE of this displacement range? We get a pop from this range. Where would I want it to be? Right up into here, right? That's if we get a pop. We need displacement out of that if we're going to get that. But yeah, usually Mondays are a sit back and wait kind of day for me. But if you just look at the daily range, right? We had a huge range on Friday. So you don't expect a whole lot on Monday. Or at least I don't. Definitely be wrong, but that's my idea on it. You can see 0 displacement higher so far. Oh, yeah. Last day of the Halloween discount is today. So I have that on the overlay. But if you want to check that out, it is the last day. Thanks, Leonard. Um, yeah. There we go. And if we do get this, it will likely just lead into some more consolidation and another broadening formation. Right? So you can see, started to broaden the range. Now when we reach back into here, if we don't move out in one direction, we're likely to consolidate again and then make another broadening formation, right? So like that. Right? That's if we're going to balance. zero displacement, can't break any highs, continue lower, right? So pretty weak. And if we are on the higher time frames, right, we're actually going to go pop over to this chart. This is the fair value gap fill, or just the other day's high, right? So Thursday's high is where I was targeting for this one. 5 minute was a little bit nicer, just still not super clean for Monday. But oh, you missed the stat Halloween discount. Yeah, I don't know when they're gonna have a next one, but you'll see it on my page. You have the highest description, but my charts are late 10 minutes. How do I fix it? You have to go and subscribe to CME data if you're looking at futures. It's $4 a month, or at least I think that's what it is, and that will give you real-time futures data. No, I'm not on here every morning. Here and there between, kind of. So, looking here, see if NAS already took the lows or not. You can see did. Zooming in here, you can see NAS all the way down, took these most recent lows. Yes, didn't, right? And I bet you if we check out Dow, it's out there wilding, it's going to the moon right now. So let's see. Wow, that's wild. Look at Dow, absolutely ripping. Who would have thought? Yeah, of course, Ismail. So, not gonna watch Dow because it's annoying. Can I do a poll? Okay. All right. Check the chat for a poll. I want to see this answer. All right. I'm gonna give it a few more minutes on that poll and then end it. I just wanted to see something. If you did say no to the poll, put in chat why. I just wanted to, just curious. Yeah. Are you talking about the daily SMT on it? One down here. I'll pull it up. That one. Let's see here. No, Elite Trading is just a prop firm that I use. Yeah, it's funny when they work. I would say check out their website. Oh, SMT divergences. I do have a little video going over it. But if it still doesn't make sense, I can probably make a new one eventually. Let's see. They don't seem to work when I draw them. Well, we can go over just some tips on it if you guys want. Let's see. It's not an ICT and I don't mix and match. Okay, that's fair. The only thing I would say is it kind of is ICT in a way. Right? If we just go to a daily or something, let's see. Right? So ICT, you would say after you run previous highs, right? You want to look for a short opportunity. Same thing with after running previous lows, look for long opportunities. And that's your broad information. Not super great, but that's basically the concept. But I'll drop a couple videos in chat for you guys real quick. So here's a video from Alex on how to draw them, and then I will show you a video on my channel. If you check out those, it should help. Alex was saying we don't target order blocks, we target liquidity, and that's essentially creating broadening formations. Yep. What order would you recommend the ICT videos? Probably the order he has in the ICT 2022 mentorship. So you can see quite a big divergence here between NASDAQ and ES. So if we are going to look for a retracement here, ES is likely a little bit better for that. Hasn't fair value up now. Yeah. I've only watched the ICP 2022 mentorship. I haven't watched anything else. BPR on NAS. Where? What time frame? This. I mean, you could consider this a BPR, but like I wouldn't, which is probably going to get ran over for the most part, unless you get some actual aggressive displacement. Yeah, exactly. Choke trades. I have not gone into any of the core content. I've only watched the 2022 mentorship. So we go back to this so we can see what's happening. ES still holding those lows, right? And if we just consolidate here, this is where you make another broadening formation, right? So we draw this out. If you're going to start right here, this is going to be a consolidation range. You're going to do one of three things. You're either going to continue to consolidate, or you're going to take one side of the range, or you're going to take the other side of the range, right? So for example here, consolidate, take one side of the range, take the other side of the range, and then we're continuing down, right? So expanding the broadening formation. So you can see that. But here I would prefer to do something like this, right? Reach up here. 2022 mentorship is teaching one model. Well, yeah, it only teaches one model, but it teaches the concepts in order to make your own models and other various models. Right? Like I trade about 3 different little models. 4, kind of. They're relatively the same. I'd say 2. And that's all I trade. And one of them is like based off the 2022 mentorship model. I just add internal liquidity. And then you can learn stuff like market maker models that help you, right? But that's up to you on how much you want to learn and how much you want to go through. So getting that retracement we wanted, right? So now where do we want to see? Ideally, we want to see over this internal liquidity on ES. Not super, it's just displacey and choppy, or no displacement and choppy, right? So it's a little harder to predict than something like this where you aggressive up, aggressive down, and you get that, right? Yeah, I'm I don't really need to watch the full 2020s or 2016 mentorship. So like if it works for you, that's sick. This works for me. I'm gonna just stay with that. I know people that trade crypto with it. I personally don't. So there we go. We got the move over that high, right? Now we're starting to displace a little bit. So ideally you'd want to see NASDAQ reach over this, right? Yes, it does. That's cool, dude. That works for you. I don't need it. Oh, there you go. You can see how you get your little broadening information. Sweep below, and if we go to a lower time frame here, right, like 15-second, you're gonna see it a little bit better, right? Consolidation range, like down, aggressive up, right? So then this is your range you want to be targeting. Reach below, reaches higher, reaches up there. 2022 ICT only teaches scalping. Dude, that's cool. You don't need to try to push it on me. I'm likely not gonna watch it right now. So got our move above into a premium here on NAS. You can see it took the internal liquidity on ES. Now we want to see if we can displace lower here or what happens. You're famous. That's cool. Yeah, exactly. Boyd. The reason I'm sitting on the lower time frame, SK 9000, is because if I'm sitting on a 5-minute chart, this doesn't look super fun to me right now. Right? Even 1 minute. Yeah, he probably hasn't watched the agenda. You mainly take your entries off 15-second? Yeah, 15-second or 1 minute. Soul. Oh my gosh. That's funny. Where is sell side liquidity on a higher time frame? We just pop out to something like a 15 an hour, right? Well, you have this whole displacement range, so your liquidity isn't resting till under here, right? But that's why I'm looking more into just where we're in a discount or OT of this area, because I want to be bullish for this week. So if that makes sense to you, right? Let's see, liquidity resting above these highs, and we also have that gap on the open, but that's super sick, Ahmed. You use volume. Sometimes I use volume on the really low time frames. The reason I look, or how I'll look for it, is if we run a previous low or a high, do we get a volume spike at that low with like a BPR? That would be my ideal looking type of setup, right? So the thing about BPR for me is a lot of people will look at this BPR and just trade it way out here, which is fine. I prefer my BPR to look something like, let's see if there is one. I just prefer it to be quicker and not have to have price return as much. So like I prefer a BPR instead of right here, right? You have your BPR, return all the way back to it. I prefer something where it's aggressive up, aggressive down, return pretty quickly, and then look at for a short. That way I know I'm on the sell side of the curve here versus look, right? So now you're kind of fighting that, right? That's where a lot of people get caught trying to catch it. And they're like, well, it was all the way back here. And they get ran over, right? Yes, it can work. It's just, this is my personal preference on how I trade BPR. Yeah, Wags like his PBR with the woot woot, he said my name. Cool, bro. Um, and you can see kind of exactly why I would prefer to look for a trade right here on the sell side of the curve, right? Versus on the buy side where you eventually get ran over, right? If that makes sense. That's a new concept. Yeah, I didn't watch anything. It's just 2022 mentorship. Appreciate the content. Yeah, of course. Glad to have you here, Jake. So you guys can kind of see how internal liquidity could be expecting a short here. But when you realize your sell side, here is where we run the lows, aggressive up. This would be our smart money reversal, right? Here we're on the buy side, and ideally we want to finish above this initial consolidation. Right? And yes, this is 15-second chart, but similar thing on the 1 minute, right? That's where you could get your initial little short, could work out. But for the most part, we're kind of just consolidating, right? So not super interested in a whole lot. And if I was looking for this, I would be looking at NAS, just because that, right? And you expect that. So I'd rather be looking short on NAS than on ES. Bullish or bearish price action? Yeah, so if you go back to the very beginning of the stream too, you can see it, but I want Monday, Tuesday, put in a low, and then continue higher. Basically weekly power of 3, right? You can see that. Aggressive higher, reach down Monday, Tuesday, reach higher, and I want to see up into the 4,000 area, right? Which be into this order block and taking these daily swing highs into this fair value gap. So ideally, yeah. So I'll be right back after go to the bathroom. BPR, I'll just drop a video in the comment section. Stream's not died. I just had to go to the bathroom. So now you can see, right? Remember how I was talking about earlier, if we come back into this range and get stuck, we're likely to form another broadening formation. So it looks something like that again, right? And essentially what happens is you expand the price range and you can consolidate, right? And you get new price discovery. But besides the point, here is your little short term. See right there if we're gonna get it. What if one of the index gives break in market structure and the other didn't? Well, then you can look for that one, but I mean, a lot of times it's what's cleaner, right? So right here, NQ is still trending down while ES was holding these, right? So that gave you an indication that we could be looking for a reversal here, right? And so then there, you would ideally want to be looking for ES to break structure, which it does a lot longer before NQ here. But like right here, right, if we just look for an example, NQ is weaker, so you'd expecting it to be more short, reach up into high of the range, little BPR there, right? You can see NASDAQ does hit it, ES doesn't, but ES goes a little lower. They're kind of correlating a little bit better now, and I don't expect a whole lot, right? So I'm not trading this after my one little trade. Win rate using 2022 mentorship, it's right around 65%. Not a whole lot going on here. I'll probably hop off relatively soon. It looks like the poll, I'll finish that. Seems like 1/3 of the people do use it, other ones don't. Yeah, risk reward I try to do minimum 2 to 1. Sometimes it changes based on the trades I'm taking, but so I'd likely want to see a little bit of a drop here. Right? We'll see what happens though. It's just choppy, so don't really care what happens. 15-minute order block on ES. Let me pull it up. This one, likely not. You could have used it prior, right? Like right there. But I just don't really like this price action at all. Not really clean at all, right? Versus London gave this little Judas aggressive drop down, internal liquidity, comes back up into an OTE, right? Gives that little short, right? That's a lot cleaner than something like this. That's just kind of barcoding. If you look, you just look at this first little bit of range. So from 930 to 1030, right? Which would be in here. That's your initial balance range. If we're not going to leave this range, it's most likely going to be a balance day. And then what happens is when you try to reach outside this range, right, and you fail it, then you come back to the other side of the range, right? That's how balance days work. And that's when you make a little broadening formation, right? You go back to a balance day where it was either inside or just didn't do a whole lot, mark out the first hour, RTH did 1030, and just see what price did, right? That's why I'm not really interested in anything in here, because why would I be? If we just take like a volume profile here, right, for this time, right, from 930 to there, right, should pop up. Let's put it there. You can see so much volume done in this area. I wish I could have just got it for that. Um, but essentially, you're going to have a lot of volume in this area, right? It's going to look something like that. You have your, 68% of transactions in here, right? So you don't really want to be trading in there. You want to catch the edges, right? Now, if we go back to that little divergence, you can see we did call this little move here, break the internal high, right? Drop down, right? Broadening formation right there. We missed that while I was explaining, but there's still setups you can find, but It's just less probable, and that's why you want to be on the lower time frames for me. Does he teach you guys about inducement in the 2022 mentorship? So I'm a little confused. You were just crapping on the 2022 mentorship, and now you're asking what it teaches. So I'll let you figure that out, because I think it would be beneficial for you to watch it. But that is the main model I trade is inducement, and that's aggressive move, internal liquidity, and it ends up making a broadening formation. This is a perfect little example. So you can see aggressive. Let me draw. Aggressive down, right? Internal liquidity right here. Then you're chopping around your range bound, right? Take out that range into an OTE, this area, see lower prices, right? Now that we completed that broadening formation, you can see drawing it out, right? Pretty clean to see where we could possibly get a reversal. Now we're into OT at this range, but I would likely want to see it go up here, right? Yeah. Can you please explain what is considered an aggressive move? Aggressive move comes down to displacement fair value gaps, right? So if you look right here, we reach up into these highs. Personally, I would have wanted these to break. And then get this reversal, but you can see fair value gaps here, right? A little better on the 1 minute, but you can see, we just delete these out. Where you have aggressive moves are fair value gaps, right? So if you look not super aggressive on this move up, here's a little aggressive move there. And if you look aggressive move right on the other side, that's a little BPR. That is what gives you your internal range liquidity broadening formation that we just saw in the lower time frames. Then we took this low. This would be aggressive, but you see how price came back down, right? Aggressive, price came back down. So it is aggressive on a slightly higher time frame, or lower time frame, I mean. I think we go to 30-second. You can see a little entry there, but just more so consolidating, making a broad information. I find it's very difficult to understand what ICT is playing. Yeah, I mean, it happens, but really if you focus, I got to make my video for this week still, but it's going to be just focusing on displacement, like aggressive candles, versus the lack of displacement. Because a lot of times when you have the lack of displacement up, you can trade it short, right? But if you look right here, I still want a little bit of higher prices here. And I'll explain. Is consolidation, aggressive down, aggressive up. I'd want this to return to the lows here and then go higher, right? And that would be what I ideally would want. Right? Where would your stop be for which short? This one, I would put it probably on the bodies here or this high, right? Because what happens and why I like inducement is, right? Someone would enter right here, right? On this 1 minute BPR. And then what they do is they'd move their stops to break even once it made this new low, right? Then what happens? Comes up, runs their stop, then they get the actual move down, right? So that's why I just prefer to wait for inducement. You miss some trades, but yeah, essentially. So you can see here, 15-second chart. If this is to work, we want to see displacement up, right? So we want to see some aggressive candle here over the structure, right? Essentially there. If not, kind of just going to consolidate again. Do you focus on indices most of the time or everything? Mostly just indices, just ES and NQ. CJFX, reach out to me on Twitter. What was my daily bias today? I'll go over it in a second after we get this little displacement move. So you can see ES is a little bit stronger there. NAS just looks a little cleaner. Right? So ideally we want this to sustain over highs and close, right? We don't want it to reject. And that's your little indication right here that it's not likely to go quite higher yet, right? Now, I don't really feel like going to a 5-second time frame, but right, ideally you get a broad information there. Didn't quite go down low enough, but how is ES and NQ different than Dow? Dow is just always wild, and that's all I know. Look at Dow, like when we were, I just don't like the way Dow moves in correlation with everything else. I'm not really going to go over it right now, but just backtest and see how it moves with the indices, the other indices in QNES. So, and if you look, what did we just get? This is basically the way I learned this setup was Alex's box video. And all it is saying you have some sort of consolidation here, right? Take some bodies of that or just the lows of it, right? Consolidation high up here. What happens is you get consolidation, aggressive move out of the box, aggressive move back in. So this is your consolidation, manipulation, and then you want your distribution, right? So power 3 essentially. So then you get a move out of this. You want to see it retest the low or this side of the box before continuing higher, right? So ideally up into this area. But if you haven't checked out that video, I would highly recommend it. But ES and NQ just correlate a little better than Dow. A lot of times ES and NQ will be short and Dow will just be ripping. It's more of a lagging or leading indicator for the indices, and you never know kind of which is which, so I prefer just to not really watch it. But and see, little box setup. But normally if you have one, you want to kind of target there, stop there, and then target whatever highs you're looking for, right? But didn't quite reach down there. Price action's choppy. Box almost head and shoulders, yes, but the thing about the box is like this needs to be aggressive down and aggressive back up. And if you look, well, it's not super great, but ideally you get some sort of volume spike down here at the bottom, right? Right there. And you can kind of see it. I just add it with things, but I'd say head and shoulders. I don't know because I never learned like those type of TA patterns, but I'm pretty sure they don't say you need this aggressive price movement. And so like if we just get like really slow price action with the head and shoulders, not really about it. I want this. Even this isn't a super great setup. What I normally want is, let me just hop into the screen. You have some low or some liquidity to be looking for, right? Consolidating, aggressive move below that low, aggressive move back up, retest that low, right? Or the consolidation to then go higher, right? And then this is where you search for your 2022 model, right? Low, aggressive back up, right there. That's OTE. If you've missed that one, normally wait for your break of structure, get a second leg, go higher. But pretty choppy, right? So you can see we would have wanted this to displace over highs if it was going to go. But now what do we have? Broad information. Right? If we go to a 5-second, it'll be a little more clear. You can see took this previous low, shaking previous highs, and if we can't displace up here, we're going to continue lower, likely heading for this low. Right? And you can see right there, just took it. Right? Now we get this volume spike, and then this is if we get something really aggressive back up here, then you could be looking for something like this, right? But this is obviously you have to recognize we're on a 5-second chart here. So if you go out a little, it'll be a little bit more difficult. But go back to the 5-second and kind of see how using just that volume spike under the lows, BPR here, this is where you'd want to see our aggressive move. So there you go. And the reason I draw that there, I know it was prior to this all being here, but if we wouldn't have just had this jump up, that would have been displacement like there, reaching back right into a premium. But with this, looks to be pretty choppy. But let's see here. So how can you be on the right side of the market on the lower time frames being in line with the higher time frames? So the most important part with that is just knowing what you want on the daily, 4 hour, 1 hour, whatever high time frames you look at, right? So knowing I want lower prices today, yes, I want lower prices, but I'll also, if it's choppy, range bound, I'll play it however I see it, right? So like right here, I obviously want to move lower, which we may get after retesting that, right? I would have preferred this candle to retest it and then just drop. But you kind of just have to go from top down and see where you're at, right? So even a 5 minute normally works pretty good for my lower time frames, right? So you can see right here, dropping down, aggressive move up. Here's your 5 minute fair value gap, right? You want to see higher prices. Where are we ideally targeting? This high, right? So knowing that type of stuff, when you go down to a 1 minute or super low time frames like 15-second, right? You know kind of what is happening, but even then it's fractal, right? So if you're on a 15-second, you have a point of interest, right? Well, there you go. You can use this as your point of interest. Go down to a 5 second as your entry time frame, right? So you can see how we called that little move there, the spike down. Here's our little retracement we got. Not super great, but it is a 5 second on choppy day. Reach higher, and look at that, brought in the range, right? So, um, so ideally this goes, we go up to a 5 minute chart, right? I'd ideally want to see this ran, right? Take a quick at CL. So, and there's our rip, and you can say, thanks to the box setup, right? It's essentially what that was. Consolidation, aggressive down, aggressive up, and then this is where you get your inducement, right? So right there. Trading schedule. I normally only trade 9:30 to 11. I'm actually going to hop off here in a few more minutes. So if anyone else has any questions, feel free to ask them. Give it a couple minutes, and then if not, I'm going to go ahead and hop off. Let's see. Data. I have CME data through TradingView, and so I don't need a data feed because it just connects to that. But I would ask them. Yeah, exactly. If you're in a short trade and you have a higher time frame going up, you can just target the OTE of that range, right? So even if you're going to short somewhere up in here, right, where would you want to target? OTE of that range, right? Or we'll pull it up, right? So you can see it hits the 0.62. I don't put fundamental factors into my style of trading. What time New York time? I normally trade basically, sometimes I'll trade pre-market, but normally 9:30 to 10:30, 11, and then I hop off. So you wouldn't consider the 5 minute candle displacement up? No, not on NAS here. Let me pull up that was fine. Little draw in there. No, I wouldn't consider this really a displacement. Lower time frames, yes, but if you look like this is a displacement candle, right? Big full body fair value gap. Do you see any fair value gaps in this area, right? No. That's why I'm looking for something like reach above this high, go lower, right? That's why I have that drawn out. I had it on this screen, I think, right? There you go, 5 minute. But if you guys have any other questions, let me know. If not, I'm gonna hop off and we'll say 2 minutes. Yeah, I personally use Elite Trader Funding. But if you guys have any other questions, just leave them in the comments below or reach out on Twitter, and then I will get to those. Next live, I'm not exactly sure. Kind of depends on my life schedule. So yeah, I would reach out or click on the link in the description. They have information on their site. Any tips for avoiding emotions? Either stop or profit target, right? Don't just sit there and mess around and move your profit target a bunch. Obviously, you can adjust for price conditions and stuff, but for the most part, either let your stop hit or let it go to your target. But yeah. All right, guys, I will see you all later. Hope you guys have a good one, and see ya.